any other two drivers, that wouldn't have happened. But because this is a championship fight, we're going to expect these things to come.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, Chris. And like you said, Max is that aggressive driver. I do want to mention something that bothered me during the post race, and that was Damon Hill's comments. And
Mm.
I respect Damon Hill, and he's a world class driver, obviously, and he's a very good commentator and a legendary driver. But I really don't agree with the comments he made after the race, where he suggested that Max did this as a, if you watch soccer, professional foul. He called it, as in, taking Lewis out to make sure he doesn't get any more points, like, up on him because he thought he was going to get by. And I don't think that was the right comment to make. Because I don't think Max would do that. I don't think that's what his intention was at all. And yeah, it bothered me that he suggested that he was taking Lewis out on purpose, because Max doesn't seem like that guy, and I don't think this championship needs to be tainted on the fact of a suggestion that someone took someone else out on purpose. Because I don't think that's the case with either of these drivers. I don't think Lewis did that on purpose in Silverstone, and I don't think Max, went up and tried to get a position on purpose um, in Monza here. So yeah, that did bother me that he made those comments, and I'm not sure if there was anything else. I know he said that to Christian Horner, and I don't. Horner's reaction was pretty like it was pretty subdued. I thought he was going to lose it on Hill. I know I would have if I was in his position, but I think Horner just kind of dodged the question, which I would have done too, because there was nothing really good to say there. Because it's a wild accusation to put that onto someone. So, anyways, I disagree with his comments, and I'm not sure what if he said anything else after that. He doesn't suggest those comments again.
Well said. I 100% agree with you. And, it was the same thing with the first accident, right? Saying, oh, Hamilton, like these drivers don't think that way. And I
Yeah.
was watching the Driver 61 breakdown by Scott Mansell on his YouTube channel, and I thought
Mm.
he did another fantastic analysis. And he said, too, like, drivers don't think that way. Like, they're making decisions in milliseconds, tenths of a second. They're not thinking, I'm going to take him out purposely right now. It's just they see a gap, they react to it, and they go for it. And what happens, happens. So I think it's more of a case of both drivers just did not want to give up their position on the track instead of one or the other doing it on purpose. So I'm glad that you called that out. I would also have to call out another legend in F1, which was Jackie Stewart. I don't know if you saw his comments post race, or I think it was actually just in the last couple of days, where he said Max was immature or is not matured enough yet because of the fact that he didn't check on Lewis after the accident. And I've been seeing this being made into a much bigger story than it needs to be. It's very clear from the video footage when Max got out of his car. He looked over to Hamilton, saw that he was trying to select reverse gear and trying to actually pull his car out of the gravel to keep going. So he saw that he was okay, he was moving, and then Verstappen decided to just walk away. So for
I
me,
honestly, sorry, Chris.
no,
I
go ahead.
thought you were done. I thought you were done. Sorry. I honestly thought I was surprised Max didn't go over there and yell at him. But so that's when he looked and he saw Lewis selecting reverse. I think that's where he was like, okay, I won't bother with it, because I thought he was going to go over there if there was going to be something that was going to happen between the two of them. Because Max was very infuriated after the accident, which I mean he should be, and so was Lewis. Um,
Yeah.
but like you said, I don't think that's a topic that needs to get picked on, because I don't think there's anything to take out of that comment that Max needs to mature just because he needs to check on Lewis. I mean, like you said, he saw Lewis was fine. So
Well, and this is where I do have to criticize sometimes the British bias that is Sky F1. And I think we're really seeing it now this year when there's actually a legitimate threat to, Lewis Hamilton as a world champion. And I mean, that's fine. I know they're very proud, they're very supportive of the British drivers. But just to compare it, remember when George Russell went over to Valtteri Bottas in Imola? He didn't go over there to check on him. He went over there and tapped him on the head to say, like, hey, you idiot, what did you do? So, but I didn't hear
yeah,
very much criticism from any of the British media saying, well, Russell shouldn't have done that. Imagine if Verstappen would have did that to Hamilton. Oh my God. they would have called the United Nations for the next race in Sochi or something. So I think that exactly like you said, it was almost better to just walk away. And I think Max even said that post race too. It's just like, you know what, like we're emotions are so high right now. It's just better to walk away. And
Yeah.
he's learned from that, obviously, from in Brazil when he almost punched Esteban Ocon afterwards, right? So I think that
I,
was
I'm telling you, if that was a NASCAR race, there would have been some punches thrown on not only the drivers but the teams would have got involved. It would have been a huge fisticuffs between the two drivers. This was NASCAR, but I guess this isn't NASCAR, so
but we do want to see it, right? I mean, like a
we do want to
Hamilton.
see it.
How about like remember that race so many years ago? This was the '80s maybe when Nelson Piquet got knocked out by a back marker and he like started kicking and like I wanted to see that.
Well, like I'm not saying this because yeah, like I endorse it or encourage it, but and everyone would be like, "That's terrible. It's just so unsporting." But what's going to get the most views on this championship is if those two somehow went at it a little bit, and that would blow the entire sporting world through the roof. And I guarantee you, everyone will be watching every single race for the rest of the season if they went at it.
Well, I totally agree with you, and maybe we should put a disclaimer at the bottom of the screen. The Backmarkers F1 show does not endorse violence. But I think that sometimes some of the newer generation F1 fans are just, I don't know, the people that I see on Twitter, they're just like too soft. I mean, this is motorsport at the end of the day. This is a very serious, aggressive sport, and you're going to get these heated moments. So, yeah, not just for like the drama or whatever, but just yeah, everything else just that would come from that would be so amazing. But and you know, I mean, I watched some little NASCAR too in my days, but I remember watching even Champ Car and IndyCar back then and seeing Paul Tracy
Oh, I was gonna say,
tackle Alex Tagliani.
yeah, it's got to be Paul Tracy.
For people that don't know, just YouTube Paul Tracy, a Canadian racing legend hero and quite the brute force when it came to
Yeah,
handling drivers.
anchored NBCSN commentator for IndyCar, which is amazing.
That's right.
But yeah, he didn't want to get on Paul Tracy's bad side because he was coming after you. And you know what? It was so entertaining to watch. My favorite driver growing up in IndyCar was Paul Tracy. And not only because he was Canadian, because there's other Canadians on the grid, of course. Alex Tagliani was one of them. And I
Hmm.
still cheer for them, but I love the aggressiveness of Paul Tracy and how he didn't care what people thought of him. And if he thought something went wrong, he dealt with it himself. So um, now maybe he took it a little bit over the top sometimes. But at the same time, it was entertaining and people watched because Paul Tracy was driving.
But you got to respect that, though, right? A
Yeah,
driver
absolutely.
and a man who's going to handle his business. He's not going to cry about it to the stewards or anybody else. He's just going to go there and do it and
Yeah.
confront him. So it's personally why I like Verstappen, just because he has that fire that just reminds me
Mhm.
of the old school drivers. But yeah, maybe we'll get the two of them in a charity boxing match or
Oh
something.
God. Great.
Maybe somebody needs to call the Triller Fight Club people, and then
Yeah.
instead of a 58-year-old Evander Holyfield, we'll put Verstappen and Hamilton on.